Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, and welcome back to the anabolic scientist, Will. He's come back on the pod, so thank you. He's waving. So you're going to watch the YouTube video, guys, because if you're on the podcast, you're going to miss the wave.
Yeah, a little camp wave. It's good. It's
good. So you'll remember from the last podcast that Will has the AI computer set up. So when he moves, it moves with him. We're two children, clearly.
I'll start spinning my chair in a minute.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about body dysmorphia and imposter syndrome. There's a podcast already gone live in regards to sort of a female aspect of body dysmorphia, and then tying that into emotional eating. And the list, of course, goes on when we're talking in these realms. And this is part of the mental health series. So Will is a coach, a competitor himself, and plenty of experience to share. It's just such a big topic, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's lots of stuff that, like, I think it's always difficult when you're a coach, you have your own expectations. If you coach yourself and then you're coaching others, and it's just a whole load of spaghetti mess running through your head a lot of the time.
Yeah, for sure. And from coaching yourself, that will be super cool to delve into that as well, because I've never coached myself. I literally had about 3 months between my coaches. I've only ever had 2, and I felt in no man's land. And I could have done it myself because I'd already had sort of over 7 years of experience. And in my mind, it was like, okay, so I have a break from coaching, see how I get on. And it was like, I feel really, really weird. So I'd be interested to talk a bit more about how you ended up coaching yourself and how that came about.
Yeah, so it's a funny one. I've been on and off coaching myself for, I'd say, like 50-60% of the time I've coached. Well, actually, no, probably more like 60-70% of the time. 73.44576%. Yeah, probably like that. But just check my, algorithm says that. I've got to keep up the I'm a scientist shit. My first season, I said I would be coached by somebody. This is the way. And if anyone's watched The Mandalorian, it's one of my nice little catchphrases that I'll throw out wherever I go. Kind of nicked it from my buddy Mike Len, Unorthodox Nutrition. He said it to me once, and I went, why the fuck don't I say this all the time? Because I watch this. It's great. Pointless tangent. But yeah, I went, this is the way. I'm going to be prepped by someone. It's going to be yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full, robot mode, engage, go. So I hired a very popular coach in the States. He's got one of the biggest YouTube channels and stuff. And that, I don't know, it got like to about 12 weeks in, 16 weeks in. And I don't know, it's just the fact that it was so undetailed. I was a bit like, okay, I'm a bit anxious here. I'm not sure this guy's even like, he'd give me like, 1 sentence replies and stuff. And now you're good. And first time, you don't know what to expect. You kind of feel like there should be more, because at the time I was doing my bachelor's in molecular biology. So I think it was first year, second year. And like, there's that contrast of detail to that. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. So I swapped coaches at 6 weeks out, big fucking mistake, idiot, to somebody that was prepping 2 of my mates, and he just pummeled me with fucking drugs, and also went, right, now we're doing 3 hours of cardio a day, and I was on less than 60 grams of carbs a day, like 30 grams of fat, I think, and 3 hours of like steep incline hill walking at like 140, 150 BPM. Awful. I'm quite proud of myself for doing it though. It was the first time. I'll give myself my badge for that. But the look wasn't good. He carb loaded me on the same amount of carbs as he carb loaded someone who's 2 stone heavier than me. Overspilled bullshit stuff like fucking shots of whiskey and stuff before stage, and just like, I don't like, obviously, well, no one's ever going to know who he is. I don't like talking about negative experiences with coaches, but that was a fucking shit show, and just never again. So that was a really shit first season. I went, right, I want to come back and have what I envisaged to be on stage. Second season, I hired a buddy of mine in fact, no, I didn't hire him first. I coached myself up until the qualifier. That went really well. And I went, awesome, fantastic. I competed it was back in UKBFF days. So I did the intermediates. Remember that funny class? So I guess that's now modern day novice, I guess, maybe. Yeah, that. So I did the inters because I was trying to make weight for the classic class, but I was 0.2 over, and they said you can either go sweat it off or come back. And I went, you know what, fuck it, I'll just do inters. I'm not going through this stress again. So competed in inters at like inters over 90, but I was like 90.3, and I actually came second, which is great. Yeah, so I was buzzing, and it was a good look. But then afterwards it dawned on me, I went, fuck, now I'm qualified for the British and I don't know what to do, and there's a lot of pressure. So I went, no, I'm not having this like ruin my decision making. So I'm gonna ask someone to come in at this point, but who kind of knows me. And I had a friend of mine from the States who is also a coach, and he's like, I think he is involved in judging in like 3 or 4 shows or something. He's involved in the promotion side, so but he's very, very good. And then yeah, he helped me for the British there, and that was good. It was a positive experience. He was a lot more hands-on, a lot more detailed, and because he was a buddy, he was like he gave a shit, so that was good. Placed 5th or 6th at that British. I think it was the last pro card year, I think. So that went well. And then after that, I went, okay, well, I clearly can coach myself. And from what I had from my buddy, well, it was 𝗪𝗿𝗶𝗹𝗵 𝗂𝗧, who prepped me for that show. It was really good for the British transition. And then, yeah, I went, okay, well, it wasn't too, I think I was thinking along the same lines. So I thought, right, I think I can do this. It's fine. I know what it feels like. I got a bit leaner, brought a really good package. So I'm no longer anxious that at that step gap, anything bad is going to happen. So that was cool. Took a couple of years off, prepped myself for the next season. I just did the qualifier. Didn't qualify in that season for the British, so I just called it a day after that because my head just wasn't in the right space to push. The look was good. I think I was 4th in that one, but it was one of those where I think like everybody was like a point between us. So different looks, different things. First actual competition in PCA Classic as well. So I thought, right, well, let's just go back to the drawing board and just see what else we need. And that was the first time I competed with Steph as well. And we were both just a bit done. So we were like, right, let's just leave that. Season after that, prepped myself as well. That was, I think, for most of it. And then 𝗪𝗿𝗶𝗃 took over in the latter half. And then I think the similar thing happened. I got to like a certain point with 𝗪𝗿𝗶𝗃 along that. And then I was a bit anxious with the stakes because I was like, right, okay, now we're going for PCA British and we're going for the NFM. The NFM Euro at that point I knew quite a lot of the guys that were competing in there, and I thought that's going to be quite high standard. So I was just in conversations with another coach about the off season and trying to make progress. And he said, oh yeah, I can prep you for this last bit if you feel like you need somebody there, because like he was at a lot of the shows. He took over for that. And the same conclusion at the end, I was like, right, okay, well, again, nothing too dissimilar to what I'd have done. So there's like these bouts of like self-doubt that creep in at different moments of time. And throughout that season, I was knee deep in my PhD. So my self-criticism with where my head was at, just experiments. And part of that would have also been, I didn't want to have the brain space of trying to figure out why this molecule causes MRSA to kill people versus trying to figure out how to get myself on stage. So a bit of offloading, a bit of anxiety. Don't do a PhD ever, it will ruin your life. Not in molecular biology anyway. I wish I'd done sports science at this point, but anyway, everything happens for a reason. And then yeah, same kind of conclusion. I was like, well, okay, I don't really think it was much different from what I did. Well, there were things differently that I would have done, which I did do this season, actually worked out better. But anyway, and then I had the coach that prepped me for that British for the off season, because I knew internally that in the off season I wasn't pushing my food hard enough. I'd always kind of I was still in that mindset. I wanted to stay irrationally lean, and it wasn't too bad. Like, I don't mean like shredded, but I wanted to stay like 12%. I'd call kind of like my cap of body fat. I wouldn't push up to like 15, 18. My peak is sort of around 18 to 20. Once I get to that point, I'll pull back. And that's just the range where I find that I perform the best at. But it's taken this long over this trajectory to kind of see, well, I've seen what happens when I try and stay too lean. I've seen what happens when I push too far. So this guy that I had, then I kept him on for the off season, pushed food and composition really high. Like, we got to like 950 grams of carbs on training days. And I think it was like 750 on off days, and everything was in the mix there. And I got on, by everything, I don't mean drugs. I just mean like we were, pushing on all cylinders, probably giving it like 85%, because again, PhD stress, but I was getting the calories and doing the training hard. The fundamentals of that. So, and then yeah, we got up to like 255, I think 255 pounds, and that was. But I felt that between 245 and 255, that was when things started to turn into a bit of a shit show. So cardiovascular health was declining, as in like resting heart rate went up by like 12 beats per minute within that time space. Don't even talk about intercourse. It was like fucking 2 minutes, and I was like, sorry, babe, I'm out. I'm just too tired. Bye. Like,
let me ask you, with talking about being tired, did you start getting sleep apnea and this type of thing?
Well, see, the thing is, I thought I was, and my Oura ring would suggest it, but this is where it gets annoying, because first and foremost, the Oura ring isn't 100% accurate with the sleep stuff. It's like, it pairs about 65-70% with polysomnography, which is the golden standard for sleep stuff. I did a podcast on my own podcast, which I haven't done stuff for ages on, but if you have a look, Spotify, I talked through it there on the Smart Tech. I think it's like a 40-minute one, you'll see it. Anyway, it's not 100% accurate, so I was like, how much am I reading into this? But then Steph bought her ring at the same time, because I got it for us for Christmas. So they're the same thing, same batch, like same hardware, and hers is sound, but then mine is like sleep awake, sleep awake, sleep awake. I'm like, fuck no, like, is it like? But I was sleeping through, you know, I was sleeping through, but you know, when like you're kind of like in this, when you're kind of conscious, but you're not. Like I was still having those, like, there's a technical term for it, but I forget because I'm not a sleep scientist, but like I was still like having quite a bit of that, not like prep, like it's not like this like twilight, this permanent twilight zone. I mean, you could actually sleep, but I'm like, this feels a little bit preppy. So have I got that? And is this actually a representation of or indication of sleep apnea? Anyway, I had a sleep study, and a proper one as well. So they gave me there's like a strap you put around your waist, a strap you put around here, something you put up your nose, like full shebang. I looked like I was in a fucking experiment. And they said that out of the 5 sleep stages or 5 sleep cycles I had, only one of them showed signs of disruption. So they were confident that I was all right. However, ironically, on that night, on that exact specific night, I don't know why, because the world just wanted to fuck me over, I had one of the best nights of sleep I've ever had, like in recent times at that time. And my Oura ring also, it still showed disturbance, but not as much. So I don't know, maybe I felt like, because I was wrapped up, I felt secure or some shit, like a weighted blanket, who knows? So I don't know. The thing is, it's NHS, so you can't go back and be like, I actually had a really good night's sleep here and I was fine. So yeah, I don't think it probably wasn't, look, if it was that bad, it would have picked it up. These devices are incredibly complex in the way that the data scientists process the information. They don't just run through it and go and be like, yeah, it's fine. They do spend some due diligence with it, especially when you've got someone who is overweight, because I was overweight. So I think probably there was a bit going on, because again, it's how do you balance data and how you feel. It's a combination of both to a certain extent. And obviously, you know, I'm not trying to say don't disregard anything you get from the medical community. Always take the advice of your doctor, which is why I left it, because again, ultimately, I'm not a sleep scientist, I'm not a doctor. They will know better than me, and there probably are some little things where they'd still be able to pick it out, or they might have done a repeat test if they saw signs of it. But I felt like it did compromise my sleep. Maybe not apnea, but it was compromised. And like the whole thing behind sleep apnea, or the basis behind sleep apnea, one of the big bases is disrupted breathing. The pressure of your tissue causes your lungs to not collapse, but you wake up and gasp, and then etc. That's the mechanism, right? So and that was like, my breathing was fucked. Walking up the stairs was difficult. I had to like, and again, I hate describing it like this, because like for somebody at 255 pounds, like, yeah, okay, I was large, but I wasn't like turbo large. I'm not like I'm like professional large. But so please don't read it as I think I'm massive. It's not that. But like there was that the general overall consensus that like not being able to like, you know, do stuff sexually just because I just couldn't be asked. Like my sex drive was high, but my actual ability to execute was just like, I'm out. Yeah, and then like high rep leg stuff, don't even fucking go there. Bulgarians, absolutely not. So, you know, there's a point where, on that note, like if you push your body fat too high, it's not productive. You don't get any more muscle. You've got to pull it back down anyway at some point. The further away from a preppable standpoint you get, the longer you're going to have to spend, or the more aggressive you're going to have to go in, say, mini cut or a fat loss phase. And then that's more time spent out of your growing phases. So I tend to try and stop or put the brakes on a little bit before then. My rule of thumb is you get to the point where you start to feel uncomfortable, and then maybe you've got 3 or 4 weeks. Again, obviously it depends on your rate of gain, but like if you're gaining like fucking 4 pounds a week, which I'd never advise for anybody, that's far too fast. Like say what I would recommend is something like a max rate of gain, depending on experience and if you're a hard gainer or not, of like about 2% per month is like your top end. And again, you could be either end of the spectrum based on how that impacts your body composition, right? But let's say like, so yeah, 4 pounds a month, that'd be for me roughly. Once you get to that point of feeling like you start to see these signs and symptoms creep up, or you start to feel like you're at that limit, your appetite's being suppressed, all the bulking stuff, right? Because I'm not going to turn this into a bulking podcast, but like then you give it, 3 or 4 weeks. And some people, I guess, will refer to this as consolidating the bulk. I don't think there's,
it's hard to quantify.
The way that, yeah, I don't believe in the way that people describe it as like, we need to consolidate the muscle. It's not fucking cement, like it's there, it's grown. Like, don't get that idea out of your head. But I get, from a psychological aspect, I like that attitude or mindset from the aspect that we're not just knee-jerking, kind of like in a prep. Like if you get a bit of hunger, you don't want to just go, I'm really hungry, something's wrong, my metabolism's wrecked, I need to slow down. Like, just give it a minute, let your brain adjust, and you'll be fine. So yeah, that's kind of like, yeah, again, my attitude to that. But yeah, that happened to me about 245, and then we just pushed up to 255, and that was, yeah, just too much. So I won't get to that. I might get to 255 in this off season because I've put on 20 pounds, but like, I won't get to that point, and I don't feel good psychologically. I don't feel good mentally, and it's not I like being lean, and I've not got issues. Yeah, so I think that's but going back to the coach side of things, coaching myself, like that was a good experience for me because I knew that I probably hadn't pushed myself enough when I coached myself there. I needed someone just to say, put up, shut up, eat, and to let them call the shots and to go, right. Because then that's all just data. All I'm doing is gathering data from that, exposing myself to a different environment. It's like when people will go to Milos and they'll do the heavy insulin usage. And because he's got his way of doing things, everybody knows how Milos works and the insulin side of things. And some people give it a go and go, did that work for me? Yeah. Did that work for me? No, I got fat. Did I enjoy it? Was it practical? Could I handle all those shots? Could I time my meals effectively? Like, there's a whole load of things to consider with that. And then you weigh it up and you go, risk to reward. Okay, the risks were too high. It was too much of a ball ache. Let's fuck it off. Actually, I quite like this, and it worked really well. And actually, just that aspect made me feel really structured, and I had to be a bit more on point because I'm, messing with something that can put me in a coma. So, in a weird kind of sense, that kind of, helps. So I learned that. I learned where I'm kind of happy at, and we'll see how that plays off this off season. And then this season, the most recent one, I coached myself right up until the PCA British. It was a very weird one. I still can't get my head around quite exactly what caused the switch where I just lost my shit, which no one will have seen because I didn't really talk about it. Probably the first time I am talking about publicly, but everything was going, and I think it may be Tren, which we can cover in the Tren talks and when we do that one. But yeah, everything was fine, working swimmingly, placing well. I did second at the PCA Manchester, and that was by a point, so it could have been either me or the first place dude. I was really happy with the look there. Everybody was happy with that. I did the two bros, Mike Fox won that one. I think, I don't know, probably second in the overall. Again, I'm not being an asshole, but I think I probably was second out of the guys who was there. I think Brad Lowe won that one. Absolutely incredible guy. Then I did the amateur in Italy, Pro Cubic 500 competitive Pro Q. There was like 200 classic competitors, and that was ridiculous. 27 of my class.
Wow.
Yeah, I will talk about this in a bit, but I walked backstage and like, imagine like a school hall as a pump up area, and it was like full, like nowhere to sit. It was just full, round of people. That was the main pump up area. And then when we went backstage, like to the actual backstage, that when my class was called back, I remember looking at everybody and I just went, they're fucking men. Anyway, like we'll go on to that later. But I got second call outs in center stage, so I assume I was 7th or 8th out of 27. So I was happy as fucking Larry, and the look was great for that. First show doing an international one as well. But I left that like super, super happy. Like I remembered I sent the voice note to my team just how, grateful I was that they had a bit more like, lenience with me not being as speedy with replies, because obviously when you're traveling and all that sort of stuff, you've got a lot to juggle. And I just fucking cried. It was great. I was just so happy, like with getting second call out as a standard like that. And they said it was the biggest NPC pro qualifier in European history, which was like, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And for me, that show was like, that for me was, or the whole point of doing that was saying, right, how close am I? And I'm 31 now. Everybody knows well, not everybody knows, but for most people, their golden years will be between 30 and 40 in the competitive round. But by 40, I'm considering myself as a wasted part. Like, I'm not going to be one of those, like some people can do it genetically. Like Dexter Jackson, for example, like he was still placing top and still in fantastic nick all the way through up until he was, I think, did he actually compete at 50 or it was close? It was like 49. But like, he is a genetic specimen, like the elite. I'm not going to be one of those people that are going to, like, once I start to decline, I'm bowing out gracefully. I'm done. Like, because if I'm chasing something that's then, I'm not seeing forward trajectory, like my momentum is gone. It becomes more of a chore just to do it. Once I lose that, and once the enjoyment of it goes, I'm fucking out. Like, I'm not interested. I'm not doing this if I don't love it. And at the moment, I fucking love it. Anyway, so I just wanted to see, like, am I close? Is it reasonable? Can I maybe do this thing? I'm not like, a pro card isn't my priority, as in like I'm not going to sacrifice my career or this, that, or the other. I know they're intertwined, but say I wanted to go and postdoc as a researcher, I wouldn't sacrifice that for the chase of pro card. It just so happens that now, coaching and teaching coaches is my full time. But I also I've always wanted to compete at the highest level. So I've always picked the shows that are, not pixie dust shows. I'm not interested in taking home trophies. I just don't compete in feds like that. It's not no slant on the fed or no slant on people who want that, but it doesn't give me fulfillment. I want to know that, like, one of the biggest things for me this season was getting a PCA gold. That's been one of my dreams for ages, and to fight in the overall, like, all I wanted. Anyway, so that for me was like, all right, yeah, sound. I think I can do it. Like, the standard was high. The guy who won my class was absolute nails. Like, he just looked, I mean, yeah, I think he's called Luca. Just fucking incredible. It'll be on the internet somewhere. But that's it. And it's just like, I thought, oh, do you know what? There's like another door now. I've got something else to anchor myself towards. And actually, like last season, where I said in the off season I gave it like 85%. Now I'm more like, my mindset's already, I mean, obviously I'm still post-show fatigue, and everyone has the post-show, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to improve this, like, and my head's like, run into making progress straight away. You're not going to make progress. You're not in a position to. But my head's nice, patiently Jedi mode. Like, when I can take the chains off and it's go time, my body's recovered, I'm so excited for that, because I now have that door, that's something unlocked. So that was the mindset I was in after that. But the weekend after, I was a PCA British, and I have no idea why. But in that week, I just went, I don't know, it's Tuesday, and I just went from like super happy, proud of myself, pleased, everything was good. Nothing happened in my life that should have made me anxious, disconnected, self-doubtful as I was about that. And I wasn't going into the PCA British wanting to get a first. Like, I just wanted to place, because I've not placed at the PCA British yet. I just wanted to place, bring my best look. And there was obviously a bit of data with doing 2 back-to-back peaks with 2 very important shows. There was no pressure from that. There's no pressure from taking home trophies or anything. I don't know, just something was wrong. And on the day, I just didn't enjoy it at all. The only conclusion I could come towards was decision fatigue. And all the way throughout the prep, I had elected like 1 or 2 people, well, 2 or 3 people that I could trust to be objective with me, and to basically, when I send them through my photos, they go, yeah, looking good. Oh, you're a bit behind, or yeah, you're this, or you look like you need a refeed or something like that. And to be fair, the primary person for that was Matt, and that's Matt Tofton. He's a very, very good friend of mine, and an absolute fucking saint. He literally, throughout the entire course of the prep, he was almost like, he was practically not co-coaching, but like I'd run all this. When I started to get a bit anxious and started to get a little bit closer, if I wasn't sure about, carb loading numbers and stuff, because I know I need that push for food, because I've got this little internal stupid voice in my head that says you don't need this much food because you're tiny. And this is the body dysmorphia side of things. My head thinks 500 grams of carbs, no, that's way too much. Like, I'm not that big. But I was on stage at fucking 213 pounds in really good condition. I'm not going to say like peel that in my mind, but I'm going to say semi-peeled. Like, I'm confident enough with that. But my head doesn't go like, it just goes, and it's fucking stupid, because there are 212 competitors that are gigantic. And even the fucking top I'm wearing now, like, I looked on the website and I was like, gasp, this athlete is wearing this. So that means I must be 3 sizes too small. But something inside my head went, no, don't be an idiot. Buy the size that they're wearing and it will be fine. And lo and behold, it has been. And they're like big people. It still doesn't click in my head. My head's still like, I'm still way smaller than them. But anyway.
Yeah.
So the thing went, and it was that. And decision fatigue was there. Matt has been a saint throughout the entire of my prep anyway. Very good friend. And when I look back at it, like the amount of times I was messaging him, or the amount of times I'd send through check-in photos, and the uncertainty in my language versus when I was doing the Manchester, pretty much like that. Like, I might send him an update once every like week for the Manchester, being like, yeah, happy with this. Because we did it with each other. Like, he'd send me his photos, I'd send him mine, and it's just like a nice little, we prep together. So he said to me after the British, he said, look, you're not prepping yourself for the Worlds, because I played fifth at the British and qualified for the Worlds. I was set on doing that, but he could see how I was both in person, because ironically he was 2 flats down in the apartment we hired as well. And he knew how my language and mindset had just shifted into this place it shouldn't have been. And he said, look, I'm not, as a mate, I want to prep you for the World. I really don't want you to prep yourself. I don't think it's going to be a good idea. Please just let me prep you for these last 5 or 6 weeks. I want to see you at your best. I want to see you happy and enjoying it. Like, I need to like not control myself, because every time I relive that, I just want to fucking cry, because it's just good people like that they just don't exist.
I know.
Not in my mind anyway. And I'll always be so incredibly grateful for that, because from a coaching aspect, like that for me was like, wow, that's who I want to be. And I am like that with my clients, funnily enough, but I don't ever have role models in coaching, because knowledge wise, obviously there's no deficit there. There's very few people that I feel like hold themselves professionally to an integrity level that I want to aspire towards. But so then Matt took over for the Worlds. I decided to not be an idiot and decided to be grateful for the fact that I have a good friend and to listen to him, and just roboted for that. We decided to jump into the UK Open the week before, because we thought, fine, whatever, let's just throw in some tan and see, because there were a few tanning things I wanted to try as well, like not hiring the show tanners, is whenever I've looked at the photos and whenever I've seen myself in the day, it gets put on really thick, and I've got really thick, like, I don't know, rhino skin. It doesn't sit well with adding another layer of shit on top.
Oh, okay.
So did the self-tanning stuff. Contains more alcohol, so it dries quickly. It sits on thinner. And I also tanned a little bit beforehand, so I had a bit more of a natural base anyway. And that works really well. My first ever, that second season I did with Cornelius, I melanotanned myself to high heavens for like 4 weeks, I think. I just got pretty dark. And then I also spray tanned. I had a friend of mine who was a beautician. She spray tanned me for 3 days before with the darkest tan you could get. I think it was like 20% DHA or whatever it is they put in it, and did 2 coats, sprayed me black, and I'd wake up, rinse off the top, and go. And the last couple of days we just let it dry. But obviously I showered in between because I don't want to stink for 5 days. But that actually worked really well because it was just dry. So I thought back to that and thought, well, okay, let's try and replicate that. So we did that for the UK Open anyway. But that's a nice little tanning tip. Sometimes like thick tans just don't work for some people's skin, and you can like, you look perfect in the morning and you go, and after the show, when you get home and you wash it off, and you're like, the fuck, I did not look like that on stage. And it's not the tanner's fault. It's just they've got to make people very dark very fast. So what do you do? And the PCA show tanners are generally fantastic with how quickly it runs, etc. But anyway, that aside, so tried that UK Open and I won that, which is fantastic. Got my like, and that was really good for my mojo. Like just seeing that, like I could actually do it and I could get a gold at PCA. Because that's been a thing for me for ages. And it wasn't like in a shit class, like the guys were actually good in my class, which was nice. So that was good. Nice little thing for me. And that was a big day for Steph as well. Then I did the Worlds. And then that was, but I'd said to myself, and throughout the entire of those 5 weeks, that I'm doing this not to place, not to with any expectations, because it's Worlds, you don't know who's going to turn up. I'm doing this to enjoy it and to be present and to make sure that I sign off the end of the season with positive memories with my wife and my client and very good friend Chris, who's literally come to every single show I've competed at. We competed in one together because he won the Manchester, and I prepped him for the Manchester while I was prepping myself, and I had another client in toned figure. So we had Chris on first, me on in tall, because he did classic short, I did classic tall, and then she was in figure later on. So it was like juggling that, you eat that there. Chris, right, throw him a couple of jelly babies.
It's my
off. Exactly, like, right, here's backstage. I'm going to sit here. You go on. He was on stage. Classic tall, in for pumping up. And then I didn't actually, by the time I'd got back, I wasn't able to see him be in the lineup because we were pumping up. And I saw 2 guys come up with their trophies and their medals, but I didn't see Chris, and I was like, eh. And then he came back at some point with a gold. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, because my phone wasn't either. I didn't have any running updates, so it was like, yeah. Anyway, so we had that. Yeah, so that was good. But yeah, so it was just to enjoy it and just to like spend time with my wife, my good friend, and just be present, enjoy it. Dan was obviously there as well, which was nice because he had 14 competitors at that show. Bless him. I don't know how on earth he managed that. A couple of clients who'd also recently inquired, who had, well, they started up with me this week. They were there with their respective other halves, and it was just all like, you know, really nice. Like, and loads of other people that I knew were there. So, and that's all I wanted from that. And I think that was one of the, I wanted to like highlight that really from the imposter syndrome, dysmorphia side of things. I think you need to make sure that it gets very difficult when you put the pressure on yourself to get take home trophies, to take home placings, to get lost in the pressure that you put on yourself. And I think one of the best things I've done this season is to have that conversation with myself and say, this show, I'm ending on a high note. I'm doing this for me. I'm enjoying it. And this, like, yeah, we're going to peak. We're going to do our best as we do always. But I work really, really, really fucking hard on getting that mindset of like, it doesn't matter if you've had, you know, top placings and top trophies in the majority of the season. Get that idea out of your head. If you get one of the bonus points, that's great. And I did, which is awesome. I got 6. So super chuffed with that. First world's, second international show, and that was even better. But I was more than happy and more than prepared just to be like, right, am I taking my best? Have we been able to get a bit leaner? What's it like having Matt as a coach as well, and having that contrast of, again, the prepping myself and someone else taking over. So that's also been a thing that's on my mind is, should I be prepping myself, or should I just be roboting in the future? But yeah, having that last show to just enjoy it and to be present. I was talking about show songs with Matt, and because yeah, classically I'll do like 2 routines in a season. I'll do one that's a bit more gentle, and I'll do one that's a bit more impactful, and it's just because that's what I like. But everybody knows I like my posing, everybody knows I like my classic stuff. I'm not the classic king or anything like that, but I love posing, and it's a huge part of why I do it. So, and I winged one for the PCA UK, so for the UK Open, and I did 2 routines prior to that, one for my wife at the British, and then one that I wanted to do, early one. And as I was talking to Matt about song choice, I was like, I might just freestyle this one. And he's like, oh, I've always really liked this one. And I said, I actually really like the song. It's beautiful. See, I've just never really used it because it needs like a, you know, classic poser or something for it. So right, sound. Well, you can live vicariously through me, and I will do my second wife dedication. And that was even more special because I was like, and do you know what? It was one of the best routines I've done, and I practiced it once and I put it together in about 15 minutes. But I just knew. And I think that comes down to, again, a little posing tip. When you are practicing routines, don't pick a song that you don't engage with. If it doesn't mean something, it doesn't hit and do something with your heartstrings, just fucking put it in the bin. It doesn't exist, because if you're not feeling something on stage, and that's something, if you watch people compete, the competitors that get some of the best responses from the judges and from the audience, and again, yeah, okay, it's not included in the judging technically, but if you're not enjoying it, it's a fucking point. When you do see the happiness that some people have, like, you know, even just some people like body popping and shit, some of the older guys, like in the natural feds especially, like they'll have this like really old like dance music, like yeah, but they're just having the time of their lives, and like that is such an important part of prep, and just taking your head out of the it's go time, it's trophy time, because it's subjective. Like, if you have those expectations of yourself, yeah, okay, sometimes it's like, okay, you should have placed better, you should have done that. And, you know, I have it plenty of times, but what's the fucking point? The judging's been done. You're not going to walk up to the judge and be like, excuse me, please give me that trophy, that's mine. And for the other competitor, it's also just fucking rude. Like, if I were to go up to that guy who I was appointing, I think his name is Derek, he's a lovely chap. I would hate to go up to him and be like, I was better than you. Like, because that's it. He must be over the moon. He'd want to show, like, who are you to take that away from that person? If that's, and at the end of the day as well, if the criteria is the criteria and that's what the judges want, that's their vision as a fed. You can sit there and bitch about it all you want, but it doesn't make a difference. And I mean, I know there are instances where things are done a bit unfairly or things are overlooked and stuff, but again, what's the point? Like, talk about it with your mates, not publicly. And
coach.
Exactly. But that's my thing, you know, and I've over the year, and I'm not saying, you know, I've had instances in my early competitive days where I've been like, this is bullshit. But you get you're young, dumb, and you know, you learn and you mature as you get older.
The sport is getting so popular now, and there is a lot of people coming into the sport that they can step on stage for the first time and clean up, you know, and there's so much PD use, there's genetic freaks, there's so many different instances where, you know, some people are made for bodybuilding and they respond so well. But being in that opportunity, you know, because you or I, you know, I've done it for over 10 years. That doesn't mean that I should beat them because I've done it for 10 years. Let them win, let them experience it. You know, everyone has done a prep to get there. Doesn't matter who you are. And there's so many different sides of the coin there, but being a good sportsman is, you know, you're all sharing the stage, you're sharing your victories.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's just again, if you're focused on having a good time, the amount of times that, because that's one of the things that did fuck me up at the British, was because we were both competing on that day. Steph was on like a few classes after me, and usually what I do post stage, like the first thing is whoever's there at the show spectating with me, and I don't invite people to shows. It's not a thing. I think it asks for trouble, and you end up babysitting a lot of the time. But if someone wants to, sound, just be aware. I'm probably going to be elsewhere. I may not be too talkative until I get off stage, because my head's just locked in on keeping my mind quiet. That's what I refer to as Jedi mode. I just want brain quiet, focus on me, no one else is in the room, and that's how I keep my mind. That's it. And it doesn't work for everybody. Some people like to socialize, but for me, that helps. I find when I get too agitated, then it gets me anxious. So
nervous energy as well.
But that's it. I hate it. So I need to meditate and just chill out. But yeah, that's it. I mean, it's on the, you know, just you've just got to focus on you and just enjoy the day. And everyone's got their chance. Everyone deserves to have a good time, and you can't really take it away from that. And that was the, you know, the thing again, when I came off from the British stage, usually the first thing I do is have a look at photos and see, right, am I happy with how I looked? Am I happy with what I presented? I just didn't, for some stupid reason, I didn't say, hey, can we just go and do this quickly? And I just sat there miserable for the day, because I saw a few guys backstage in the lineup and I was like, oh, and again, this is not to down talk any competitor, but while I was stood in the lineup, I was like, fucking hell, well, he's definitely not in the running. His glutes are soggier than, well, 𝗵𝗵𝗵 had a field day with his glutes, soggy bottom. So I said, he's not in the running. And then he placed, like, one of them placed higher than me, and I'm like, what the fuck did I look like? I had certain aspects that the judges liked on that day with that judging panel. And it wasn't a case of, well, he looked like this, so I don't give a shit. Like, if somebody gets placed higher than me, fine. Like I said, each Fed has their own criteria, their own vision, and the judging panel is the judging panel. Who knows? There might have been two different guys in that in the previous show I did.
Yeah.
Don't care. Don't cry about it. Just move on. As long as you're happy with what you see, be happy with it. But for some stupid reason, and this again, if you do struggle with body dysmorphia, you do struggle with self-esteem and things like that, which I very much do, and I have no shame in admitting that I've had therapy for it, and I've actually just booked in for another session for it this week. So because it's been a big thing for the show, and that bothers me that day, I mean, everybody was there. Strong was there on the stall. I didn't even go and chat to the guys. I was in such a shitty state of mind. Matt was there competing. I just obviously spent quite a bit of time with Matt. My mate Will Smart was there. He did really well as well. Both of them were competing in the same class, actually. My wife was there. Chris was there. That could have been such a different day for me if I had handled that differently. Like, it should have just been a happy day. But because I didn't recognize that was such, or I didn't think that was such an important thing for me to say, and again, importance of communication, to say, can we just look at the photos and put my mind at ease that I wasn't actually a bag of soggy fucking crisps. And that will always bother me. And that was the big thing about the Worlds. That's why I said that is never happening again. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned. Do not end up putting yourself into that position of the day, because what is the fucking point? We spent a lot of money on that, a lot of time prepping for that, and I wasted that memory, and it breaks my heart. I hate it. And I don't mind, I'm actually quite comfortable talking about it on a podcast, because I don't want that to happen to somebody else. It should be enjoyable. So
yeah, it's so true though, because it's like, even, you know, in a prep, it's something I talk about a lot on the podcast. I look back to, like you've spoken about, you know, your first couple of preps, it sounds like you were similar to me. You're sort of like, I'm doing all this, and your head's up your ass. And I often reference it. I said to Matt the other day, I think I probably would have been quite a fucker to live with in my, you know, particularly in the early days, because I just had my head up my arse, and it was hard to, you know, want to communicate with anyone, because I'm thinking, well, you're not going through what I'm going through. And then that leads into distancing yourself from relationships. So I'm glad you said about, you know, if someone else listens, they could gain some insight into not letting it happen to themselves.
Yeah, and that's it. It's just like, and it's ridiculous when I think back at it. It's, you know, I had everybody I wanted to be there. You know, 𝗏𝗏, obviously they're literally like a second family to me.
Yeah.
My wife, Chris, second family, Matt, second family, my mate Will, you know, everybody's there. And okay, I perked up a bit after I'd, you know, chatted and talked to people, but like at the end of the show and your first show and stuff, yeah, fine. You don't know what to expect. Your emotions are running wild. I think everybody is going to have, and I say this to everybody, your first show is always going to be a rough fucking ride, and there's almost nothing you can do to stop that. I find the only people that don't struggle are probably military people that have been put in some real shit, and they're just told to put up and shut up. But or a very rare mindset. You know, some people just aren't easily triggered, or they don't.
Maybe if you win your whole season.
Well, that as well. Well, because I've seen that as well. I've seen that in a few competitors where they won the whole season this season, and they placed second, and they were absolutely livid. And I'm like, really? And I get it, because, you know, if that's your expectation, it's almost like I kind of wish that most people didn't have that for their first season. Not from a I don't want them to win, but I just think it's good if you don't have it your way. It's like like if you let your kid have their own way, that's never going to end up as a good outcome, is it? They're gonna be, it's this sense of entitlement that, and I'm not trying to turn it into a fucking British culture bullshit thing, but like it is a thing, and you got to consider these things, like what's our default environment in the UK. It's, and I don't want to offend anybody with this, or anybody who's a nationalist, but we are an entitled society. Like, go to any other country, which is one of my favorite things about traveling. There's no sense of entitlement, because there isn't a backup, there isn't a safety net. Like, I mean, I grew up in, again, not going to play the poor African kid thing, but I did spend half my life in South Africa, and there was nothing to fall back on, no safety net. There were people living in the fucking bushes opposite my house, going out and begging for a loaf of bread a day. That's no exaggeration. And again, it's not to throw that card around, but just be grateful for what you have. And yeah, some people will go like, now this mindset guru stuff. Like, what's it going to cost you being grateful? What's it going to cost you not expecting that? Is it gonna set you back? Fuck, it isn't. It's gonna make you happier in the long run for the smaller things. So
yeah, it certainly adds substance to your journey, everything you face as a competitor. And I had 𝗪𝗲𝗵 on the pod, and she was talking about it took her 3 years to win a show. And I was like, I said on the podcast, I was like, I don't know if I'd change my journey, like if I could have won my first season. And I was like, no, I wouldn't. It took me 5 years, 5 fucking years of literally living like a robot. But when I lifted that trophy, fuck me, like honestly, I collapsed on the floor. It was crazy, and I felt every single prep, and it was like, wow, you know, it was such an achievement. And it's crazy I think when you don't get looked at, when you don't place, and there's a reason you're not competitive, you know, or whatever, you weren't going to be in the winning spot. You go, I'm going to work my fucking ass off to get that, and then you keep going and going and going. So it's certainly nice to have that substance.
Yeah, and I love that. That I need to remember that. I felt every single prep. That's so cool. That's like the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
But like some of them, like the Fit X British with the girl that won your class in that one, like she was just incredible. I can't remember her name now. She had the frizzy hair. She's the overall as well. I remember her coming out. I was like, that waist is that. But like sometimes you just, I mean, you can't control it, and you just can't fuck with people like that. And to have gone through the journey, to have competed against people at that standard, because that standard in your class was really, really good. And to know that you've gone through all of these journeys, and you've gone through all of these preps, all of these shows, and finally you've had your moment, like that's super fucking special. And I think there's a lot to be said about, I mean, as a coach, I had a client this season. So second season, the first season, it just was an absolute shit show. Unfortunately, her other coach I don't think she was coaching. She asked her to coach her because she was there. Didn't go well her way. I said, right, let's do a bit of redemption here, get you what you want. So first of all, we're going to get you placed. We didn't put her in the lion's den in like the big natty feds like UK, DFBA, and so on and so on. But I said at the end of the season, after we've built some confidence, some stage confidence up, some stage presence, we've got you in condition, we're happy with your look. How do you feel about ending the season doing a bigger show like the WNBF? Because that was a really high standard show this year. And so yeah, okay, cool, let's give it a go. But she's also, you know, good friends with my wife, and she's also a good friend to us. Many coaches are like, don't cross the boundaries between friends and business.
No, this is a talking point for me. Fucking like, my clients are family. Honestly, like, it's mutual respect for me, right? I will go on a tangent here, Will, because it is, because, you know, my coaches, Tom's my best friend. Doesn't mean I don't respect him. He tells me what to do and I fucking do it. And, you know, then there'd be times where sometimes he talks to me about stuff he's going through, or, you know, it might be like a mindset talk rather than like, okay, this is your training, this is your food, whatever. And I respond extremely well to it. But you might be similar. It's sometimes hard to get that a client that responds to you wanting to dig deep on mindset to help them grow. I do get pushback sometimes, and it's tricky because it's also that borderline of like, almost if they're going to share something deep with you, they're thinking, are you my friend? And it's like, well, no, I want the best for you, like genuinely. But if there's some trauma or things in there, if we can actually talk about it, you know, it's not week one, but it's really nice to, and then that's when they do become, you know, friends as such.
It's a really, really, really fucking hard balance to get. And it will, and I have no shame in admitting that, let's say 20% of the time it backfires and it doesn't end up going your way. And that's not saying there's been any incidents or anything, but what I'm saying is that the perception from the client's aspect of you being in a position of authority can get lost or blurred or diminished. And that has happened plenty of times. And I'd say maybe not 20%, maybe like 10% of the time is probably max. But for me, it's a trade-off of, okay, with 10% of people, it might not quite have the desired effect. But ultimately, if that authority connection is lost and they don't continue to execute as they should do, I'm at peace with that, because I've done my bit to go the extra mile to treat them as a human. But then in the same sense, it's also on them to actually want their goal. And I know that people throw around that you don't want it bad enough, but ultimately, when push comes to shove, that is what it boils down to. Now, this isn't saying people who've, you know, lost family members or going through a fucking horrible time. You know, I've had clients that have lost both their parents to cancer and fucking in the time frame I've been coaching them. But yeah, and then in the same vein, I've had people go through equal amounts of shit. They've come out stronger. I've had some people that have wanted to open up about issues like that, and that have wanted, you know, because whenever I give feedback, I'll give wherever appropriate. And if I've read the room and I feel like they're receptive to it, and we've got that kind of, you know, back and forth, I'll try and give my own experiences or my own input, not in a way that's like, hey, I know what you're going through, because you never know what someone's going through.
No, but it's like sharing personal anecdote, isn't it?
Yeah, and just making them feel heard. Like that's the number one thing is making people feel heard. Now there's a balance obviously between someone feeling heard in the sense of, I'm hungry and I just ate this because times were shit, and going, okay, hun, it's fine. Like, no, that's not cool. That's not fine. It's I hear you, but what can we control about the situation? And what is the most impactful factor when it comes to controlling our body composition? We've got, well, diet and activity. How can we put strategies in place that they're not crossing remits? You're not acting as a psychologist. You're not trying to say you're an eating disorder specialist or something like that if you have no experience in that realm. If you have got experience in that realm, have at it. But if you aren't that person, there's nothing stopping you from saying, you know, having a list of questions like, say, for example, like something's triggered them from an emotional side of things because of what they're going through, and they reach for the biscuit jar. There's nothing stopping you from saying, as you reach for the biscuit jar, create yourself two paths. Is this in alignment with my goals? Is this not? Or after you've had the biscuit and you recognize that it's a bad decision, have a series of questions to ask yourself. How did I feel before that? How did I feel after that? How did I feel during that? How do I feel about the decision? Was it necessary? Would I rather have done that decision? You can put things in place like that. And things like that, adding that human element to coaching. I mean, I wouldn't change it any other way. And, you know, I have clients around for every year. Traditionally, we do a murder mystery at ours, and it's effectively, it's like Cluedo, but we all dress up and we buy one of the kits. We actually buy one of the kits online. It's like, I don't know, 50 quid or something. We get the script, we all get into character, we have a brief, and I'll usually make like a sort of potluck mesh of food. It's my big cook, and I just love that shit because. And people are like, what, you have your clients around for dinner and stuff? Well, yeah, if they're fucking nearby and we can have a bit of a social, why not? Like, I can't remember how we got into that tangent, but
well,
like,
yeah, I probably took the lead there. There's just been so much recently. I feel like a lot of guests are talking about it, and then I'm receptive to it, and I see a lot of coaching, and I get probably my main fuel here is I get a lot of people message off the back of listening to the podcast saying, my coach has got me doing X, Y, and Z. I don't know what to do. I'm not happy. And of course, you know, I always say, you know, you're going to need to speak to the coach and what have you. And I don't want to get into it too much because there's two sides to every story, but it upsets me what I hear, mainly PD use for females that message, but just some of the stuff and the horror stories, it's hard because I've been there as a first timer, like yourself. I'll do fucking anything. If you tell me to stand on 1 foot and hop for an hour, I'll do it, you know, and that still rings true now. And, you know, it's really tough because I feel like, actually, you're going to probably agree here. As a coach, even when we talk about the body dysmorphia, if we are guiding clients in a certain way, so if we're obsessed with scale weight, if we, you know, as soon as the scale weight goes up, they get an extra hour cardio, you know, examples like that. If we're, you know, really focusing on things like this as an example, that what's that going to lead to when they're coming out the back and competing or post-show or whatever? So many examples of, I feel like a lot of things that happen in our space. And again, I don't want to just bash a load of coaches, but things that can happen, this can fuck someone up, right?
Yeah. I've only recently, so Chris, the super client friend blend, just overall outstanding human being. I mean, if I could write what do they call it? The poem that's is it like a sonata or something? I've lost my English language skills. Anyway, if I could write a poem about Chris, I would do. All around lovely, one of the loveliest humans I've met, one of the most balanced people I've met. He is a HR inclusion manager for a very big chemical company. It has been for about 20 years, but the breadth of knowledge he has with dealing with people and the depth that just everything, he's just so well cultured, but also so well, like, he's traveled a lot as well. He's just got so much knowledge in handling people because that's been his job, but he loves what he does as well. No one is, it's like God made him for that role. Yeah. Like, and he perfectly fits into it. If it was a fucking perfect sphere, he's a perfect sphere. He fits into that. So as part of the course that I've got, the Physique Lab, that I've been wanting to put on a human module, and well, not the human module, I've reframed it to the art of coaching. And as part of that, it's to incorporate the human side of things. And there's another client of mine, Tom Thompson, who's doing his PhD in psychology. He's got a bachelor's, master's, etc. But I'm trying to blend in the two, or trying to get both of their inputs on that. Basically going to say, right, I'm going to pay you half the proceeds for this, but I want to have something that's, because the whole point of the course is to be evidence-based plus anecdote, a blend of the two, halfway house, making sure that we get the right balance between the white coat and the, you know, and the experience side of things. Thinking by a shameless plug because it's so important. Like, and I've only got my experience, and yes, I am a scientist, but I'm not going to pretend to be a psychologist. I'm also not going to pretend to be someone who's gone through a great deal of training with respect to getting the best from people. But those two people, Chris, Tom, they have. And for me, like, all the other 7 modules in the course, all of the detail I give in that is fucking useless if the person can't do it. And also fucking useless if you can't connect with the client to be able to put them in a position where they trust you to do that. And part of that just boils down to you being a decent human being. That's a good head start if you are. And if you're, you know, say you've got altruism and selfishness, if you're more towards this end of the spectrum, you will naturally do better at coaching because, well, you give a shit. But no one's truly altruistic. And that is a fact. There is not a single human on this earth that is truly altruistic. And if we were to argue, and if you're religious, arguably the only person who was that was Jesus, but he's no longer here. In that sense, the more you can, when going back to the, you know, other coaching and all that sort of stuff, it's just over where a lot of people end up running into shitty experiences is where it turns into a 𝗏𝗏𝗏 scenario. A computer says now, and that, like, okay, if computer is great. It's my second, my main favorite one from 𝗏𝗏𝗏, rest in peace again, was the 𝗓𝗏𝗏 button. That was my favorite skit. It's good. Anyway,
that was.
I know. It couldn't exist nowadays.
I've got to say, does anyone want some dust?
Oh yeah, exactly. Prep feels. But yeah, the human side of things is just, it's no one. I wish if there was a course that just focused entirely on, and somebody can not beat me to this because my idea, and we're doing it, so, and it's happening, and I will beat you because I've got 2 better people. But that's why I wanted to focus on that, because it's just such an underrated aspect, and everyone's focusing on blood glucose monitoring, trend, primo, timing of carbohydrates, this, that, and the other. But if you haven't got a protocol to be robust to deal with people, or not a protocol, but if you haven't got,
I guess it's tools, isn't it? Like, you know, when you feed it into like the human against robot, like a lot of people can go bot mode, right? But then what happens if that bot, like you mentioned earlier, their mum dies? Okay, so what do we do in this scenario? And I always believe that I have a lot of lifestyle clients, and we work out the fundamentals first. I always ask if people can commit for at least 12 weeks to start with. And that gives me a chance to help them learn the fundamentals. But that also gives me a chance, particularly lifestyle clients, you know, there's going to be social occasions and things like that. So it's like, right, how can we push and pull things and plan for you to have a social occasion, make memories, and still progress? And I find that, you know, if you lay those fundamentals, which I believe is true for competitors as well, if something happens, they can fall back on the fundamentals as well if they've got the strong why. So it's like, rather than I want to overeat, they maybe go, okay, actually, I'll fall back on my plan. That's what I know. That's something that gives me purpose while everything else is going to shit. And personally, I feel like that's how I've sort of approached it with my own journey. And actually, I don't ever want to overeat. I want to stick to the plan, maybe even more when I'm going through something. It's, you know, not everyone's going to be like that, but it's good to lay down those fundamentals, you know.
You have to have the why. Like, that's why, I mean, it's no secret that I'm pro-education, but I'm not pro-education just because I'm a scientist. I'm pro-education because I was always a kid that I would always ask why. And a lot of teachers would give me a lot of shit for that because they just think I was answering back. But it's like, no, I'm curious, motherfucker. Like, I mean, lo and behold, assholes, when I ask those whys, I've now got, you know, 3 going on 4 degrees, or actually, no, 4 going on 5, if you count the foundation as a degree, who knows? Anyway, at many degrees in fancy things and complicated things. So fuck you, the whys were good. You were wrong, I was asking because I wanted to know. But you give somebody a purpose, they're going to stick to it. If you tell them jump and they go, why? That sounds dangerous. And you go, oh, well, actually, it's cool, there's a safety net, and actually, it'll get us to the ground faster. And then they go, oh, fair dues, I'll jump then. But otherwise, they're going to creep towards the edge and be like, fuck that, I'll take the stairs. And they'll get to the bottom. 2 hours later, everyone's gone on the bus, and you're like, oh, shit, should have jumped. And then they'll be like, coach. And he's like, yeah, I'm on the bus. Where are you? Did you not jump? No. Well, why, you dickhead? Like, I told you to jump. And then it gets to a conflict. Yeah. But what would have solved that conflict was coach saying, shit, should have explained to you why I said to jump. Did you know about the net? No, I didn't. Oh, fuck, my bad. Or, but there was a net. Or just do it beforehand so it's even happen. So that. Yeah. And, you know, like you said about the, you know, clients and robot men, I had literally just one yesterday, like, well, I didn't pull up the text, but in one of my clients' feedback yesterday, like, and I'll help out wherever I can. Like, if you've got anything I can help and give input on, I will do. And she's doing a PT course, wanted to get into coaching, wanted to do a bit of a career shift. And I know her job role is fact-based. It has to be fact-based to deliver in the way that she does. Anyway, so she's used to being right because she has to be right. That's just the way it works. So when it comes to the starting coaching, she's got to find her own niche. She's got to find where she fits. She's just got to start somewhere. Like, if I went back to how I used to coach like 8 years ago, like the amount of times I'd slap my head for some of my old coaching systems and stuff. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with how I was doing it, writing Word documents and stuff. You know, it just worked for some people. Yeah, but it's, you know, not the vision that I had for myself at the time, and now it's evolved into the vision that I want, etc., etc. But I said, the point I'm trying to make here is in the feedback with her, I said, okay, she said she was feeling overwhelmed. And I said, okay, I know you. I know that you're going to be in perfectionist mode, and you are also a robot, and you also want to make sure you do everything to the best of your ability. And there's going to be a disconnect in your mind between it being perfect and you working to the best of your ability. And for me, it's my responsibility, both as a coach and friend, and somebody who wants to help you with this new career shift, because I've got a lot of experience in that, to help you recognize that one, it ain't going to be perfect, because you're just starting off. You've got no idea where you want to, what hole you want to fit in the coaching realm, right? So one, done is better than perfect. Just start. You'll make mistakes like I have. Here are some of mine. Trust me, you ain't going to make the same ones, because I'm going to tell you not to fucking make them. You ask me for help. Don't feel like you can't, because again, asking others for help, especially those that are more experienced, is essential. Like, I don't sit on my pedestal with all my qualifications and go and say, well, oh, well, I'm not going to ask Matt why this is this. I already know what it is. I ask him why he's, or I'll ask him for things, or his input on things, because he's had a lot more experience in the coaching realm than I have. Like, he's got years on me, and he'll have seen things I might not have seen from the angle that I'm looking at it from. And three, like, make sure you create that distinction between your one professional career and the one that you're starting now. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if your head is overwhelmed from this, and if your perfectionist mind is going to be triggered by you making mistakes in the coaching realm, how's that going to make you feel about everything else you're doing? Because all it takes is one domino to start falling, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, I've not hit my steps for the day. I hit them yesterday and the day before, and the average for the week is going to be fine. But you won't see that. You'll just block that out and think, oh, bad dog. And then the stress will build up. And then what's the trigger response? Yom, 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 yom. And then what happens? Is it on plan? No. Then it goes down the rabbit hole, and you can't pull them back the fuck out, because you haven't had the discussion, and you haven't stopped to say, hey, I know you, I know your brain. This word overwhelm, I think, is this and this. Is this right? Don't let me put words in your mouth. Always say, don't let me put words in your mouth. Like, that is something I'm so strict with, because I don't want to paint a picture that isn't true, because then you'd be creating your own rabbit hole, right? But that, just things like that make a huge difference. It's not in the playbook of protein, carbs, diet, up and down. The communication is important.
And also your clients, I call it giving them a voice. And on the podcast, I feel like giving the listeners a voice in the bodybuilding space, because I feel like, and I'm sure your client and good friend will start to experience this more and more, in the coaching space, when you compete for years, etc., it can be a pretty tough sport. And, you come into it and it's such a positive, and, you're going to change your life. You've maybe not done this before, and it's like, wow, I'm part of this, like, really low percentage of people that are doing some sick things with their physique and everything. And then you go into those rabbit holes again with coaching. Are you ever a good enough coach? Oh, but that coach has got 10 clients with 10 swords. Well, I'm never going to be good enough. Well, all of these things, and it all feeds into the imposter syndrome, doesn't it? Because, for the example you just gave, she's used to being right, having the facts, and then it's almost like she's got it's a bit like before you're a pro, and then you get a pro card and you're back at the bottom again. And, it's like, it's almost like you've got to go back, but you're not. You're just going into a different realm. But the imposter syndrome kicks in. I'm not doing good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. And that rings true for coaching and competing, for sure.
You got to start somewhere. There's this constant battle at the moment between people being either too pro on the self-love, self-care, be mindful, it's okay, hun, and then you can be on that, too far on that side of the fence, where super self-love, or super military, and you've got the I'm not going to take responsibility and ownership versus I'm putting too much responsibility and ownership on things that are beyond my control on that side. And the sweet spot is obviously in the middle, but people don't like middle grounds because that's the nature of the world. Sexy things sell. People having polarized viewpoints on social media are more attractive than, oh, well, it depends. Like, oh, that's boring. I just want, and that comes down to, society. We want things now. We want Amazon. We want DPDs delivering this here. We're not patient anymore. We don't have that. And again, this is where it comes fucking ironic. Door's just gone. It is literally DPD. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. I feel seen and heard. There's Steph actually Oh yeah, she's good. Probably just put the cat down. Yeah, so it's that, and I think again, not getting too philosophical into it, but do you know what? It's fucking important to realize that, because again, I'm very fortunate to have grown up in a country where we were 10 years behind in everything. While you guys had broadband, we were still going, Dad, put down the fucking phone. Like, want to go play solitaire. To make it worse, I lived on a farm for about 5 of those years. So a South African farm, population like, I don't know, like 50. You have a lot of time to, well, there just isn't that impatience.
Context.
And I forget it sometimes. I do. And I have to remind myself. And to be fair, you know, when I WhatsApp call my dad, like, you know, just hearing about his days, and yeah, he's retired and whatever, but just hearing about the way life works over there, it's very different. Or, you know, going to a different country and seeing how everyone just seems a bit more relaxed. There isn't the complications that we have. I think it is very much a British thing. And as much as I love this country, it does have its flaws. And that's one of them, is the impatience, the entitlement, the expectation of the now. And if you just slow yourself down, and yeah, that I'm going to go too far down the philosophical rabbit hole, but I'll put a full stop on that one.
Sure. I mean, it does feed into as well when we talk about journeys as a competitor, and we've already touched on it, where, you know, whether you win your first show or your 10th show, whatever it is, you know, it doesn't mean you're entitled to then win every show that you go to. It doesn't mean you're even going to place. You could compete in one federation and the next weekend compete in the other and come, you know, first and then sixth. There's lots of different things to consider there. And certainly, you know, being entitled as a competitor, there will be people that go, well, fuck it, I'm the best. And, you know, potentially those people are. But for the majority of people that get into this sport, it can be a rough ride, and it's subjective, guys. Like, anyone listening, you know, it's not a personal attack. It's on the day being judged. But like we've spoken about throughout the whole podcast, if you find your why, and this is a journey for you, it can be incredibly cathartic. And like you said, that one memory where you said, I could have had the best day, but I didn't, because I didn't allow myself to do that, because you get wrapped up in, I guess, the negative side of it that can happen. And even if people listen and go, do you know what, this gives me a breath of fresh air to be out of this rabbit hole, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I guess maybe just closing on that is for me, it's no secret that I compete in classic, and I love classic. That's the look I want. My look for classic is Olympia classic. It's 𝗵𝗵, Terence Ruffin, Brian, you know, 90s bodybuilding is my jam. Like fucking Kevin LeBron and Sean Ray. But ultimately in PCA, I don't think I fit their classic criteria. I think they want a smaller look, and we know that that condition is a huge priority for PCA. I mean, I'm always going to say this. I could always have been leaner, and yeah, I think I probably could have been a bit leaner. And that's on me to have pushed a little bit harder earlier on. Not on Matt. We shifted a lot in the last 5 weeks. Actually, he did a fucking great job balancing my fatigue. That was very, very, very fastly fading. Or wanting to fade, but we kept it chill. Did fade a bit, but not too much. Less than it had in the past. So shout out, Matt. Anyway, I don't quite fit their classic criteria. Not quite as well as the other guys who are, let's say if I was peeled out of my mind like those guys, but it's difficult balancing the size, that trajectory. And as a coach, when you're coaching yourself, you're always learning about your own physique anyway. I'm just getting a little bit better each time, and I'm happy with that. Again, if I can keep doing that until I'm 40, I'll probably have some of my best looks in the next couple of seasons, but well, like as best as I'm ever going to get. But point being, that's not going to, say in those instances where somebody was slightly sharper and that pushed them ahead, where, because people can argue and say, well, that's not classic because classic is this and classic is that. And it's a balance between balance, symmetry, size, and proportion. Like that's how, you know, judging works, whatever. Yeah, fine. But when people set criteria, and when they have that criteria, and the judges have and the directors have a vision of what they want in mind, if they are more swayed towards this or more that, again, like I said earlier, it's their criteria. You can't fuck with it. That doesn't stop me from competing with PCA, because I fucking love the federation. I think it's fantastic. It is, for me, I've said it several times, it's the Super Bowl of bodybuilding in Britain. Like, no one does shows like PCA. The running order, everything is perfect to time, organized. You know where you stand. The lighting, the photos, the music, the pose downs. Like, I live for that shit because I enjoy it, and I love that. And that's not like, and some people listen to it going, wow, just because you can. Don't try and justify your 5th place at the British. Like, fuck off. That's like, I'm happy with everything. Ask me for the fucking photos, I'll show you them. I'm content with what I brought. I'm happy. But I love them as a fed, and I think they are fantastic. And I will support them as long as they continue to be a good fed. okay, next season, I'll be honest, I'm probably going to try open because my own body dysmorphia, back on point, always said I'm not big enough for open. I can't be a class 1 because I think I would be in class 1. I'm 6 foot, so I guess. But at the UK Open, I stood side by side 𝗪𝗵𝗹𝗃, and 𝗪𝗵𝗃 is a big boy and one of the guys that does really well in class 1. And in the overall, I was like, fuck, we're like toe to toe. Like we're about, like, he was bigger in some, I was bigger in others, about the same condition, like me sharper in some, him sharper in some, whatever. But I'm like, can you just stop being a fucking dickhead? Like, and I said to Matt, I said, like, and Dan for that matter, I said, do you think I should, maybe consider open? They're like, yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. Like, for fuck's sake.
I bet even when you said it though, you were like, do you think I should try open? Rather than, I think I look like I could try open.
I'm still fucking like that. And I probably will still do, I will still do some classic.
Yeah, it's your passion though as well. That's important. If your why, that feeds into your why. It's like, well, I can still jump on and do that, but perhaps I need to try this as well and see how you get on.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing. The other cool thing is, like, classic, ironically, like, it's a construct that has arisen because people used to pose classically in open because it was just, people just gave a shit about posing. When we had the transition into the noughties, the Dorian Yates era moving forward, the mass monster era, once that came into play, people fucked off midsection control and posing in vacuums, and they just went, right, now I'm big. And now the open's kind of shifting back towards that, and now it's all getting a bit messy. But the important things being more prioritized, and actually some of the open guys are posing more classically. So I do wonder what's going to happen with classic at some point. However, that aside, there's nothing stopping an open guy posing classically. A really good example of that is Andy Scott. Like, he's got incredible posing, or Samson for that matter. He's got, like, I mean, as he's gotten bigger, he's not done as much articulate stuff. But I still remember his routine at the 2021 Arnold's. That was just blew my fucking mind. And it was so special that, the dedication to lead. Anyway, that Andy Scott, there are big guys that do really good shit. So point being, I love the shows so much that I will compete there until they stop being good, which I have no doubt that it will never stop being good because their standards are so good. Now, my vision of my physique, what I want from it is IFBB. I look up to, like I said, that. If the criteria for PCA Classic is a smaller physique, I'm not going to model my physique on that to try and fit that, because I want from my physique what I want. When I looked at a magazine and I went, like when I was a kid, and went, I want to look like that. That's what I want, and that's what I'm aspiring towards. But then it's that balance. You got to have enjoyment, this, that, and the other. It's like it's that balance. And that's not trying to say, like, again, it's not. I'm not trying to say that from an aspect of, oh, it's as an excuse. It's not that. I will be better for the next season. I will still always aspire to get to that, little 1 or 2% better, so that when I turn up in whatever class, in whatever scenario, that I understand that guy, people go, fuck. That's always going to be, like, I always still want that. And I can feel like, wow, awesome. So I guess from the dysmorphia side of things, like, if you constantly try and posit yourself in and compare yourself to how everybody else is, it doesn't serve you.
There's that merit there, isn't there? Because if you continuously improve, and that's what your aim is, committing to all the phases, committing to your coach, and having that understanding as to why you're doing this. Because yes, in the off season, like we spoke about in the last pod, you can relax in certain areas, and preps, you go in tunnel vision for most of it. However, you still need to have that focus in all phases if you're looking to pursue being competitive. I truly believe that it's not an on-off switch, although you can prioritize different things and what have you, but understanding that from the start certainly is something that I think we will both agree on. So if anyone does want to reach out to you, is Instagram the best place?
Yeah. So now it is not just the anabolic scientist, but the anabolic scientist _ Team DW, because I'm now working with Dan as part of Team DW, which will be exciting stuff to be part of such a good prep team. So yeah, I'm the head, I guess I am the head male coach, because I am the only male coach. So head male coach. Look at me, I'm even just shitting on myself with that. Great. I could have just said head male coach, but fine. Just going to shit on myself. So that if you type in the anabolic scientist, there's no other anabolic scientist. I've patented it. No one can take that name, and I'll hunt you down if you try and take that patent copyright. I haven't really. Please don't patent it. So other than make something else equally as embarrassing. All that. But yeah, that is easiest to find me. Cool. I think. Yeah, no nowhere else. My YouTube is dead. My Facebook is dead. So
who uses Facebook anymore? And of course, thank you for your time today, and thank you guys for listening. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, if you resonate, if you found something in particular super useful, then of course we are up for you sharing and tagging us on the stories. And our inboxes are open. I know Will is of the same nature as me. You know, if you want to talk about anything, expand a bit more on what we've discussed, then we are for sure here to hear it all. And if anyone has any topic ideas, or again, if there's something in today's episode that I could expand on more, then please do let me know. And of course, I will see you or speak to you next week. Hey!